This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer? Episode 1. Marie Haynes. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Experts on the Wire. This is the show where we bring you insights from the smartest minds online. Just a few orders of business before we get into the interview with Marie Haynes. First of all, just a disclaimer, the first two episodes of this podcast series, my audio quality during the interview is not up to my high standards. So episode 3 onward, it is nice and crisp and clear like you're hearing my voice right now. So I apologize for the first 2 episodes, but I really wanted just to get this launched and shipped, as they say. So thank you for bearing with the audio quality in the first 2 episodes. It does get better. Second, the name Experts on the Wire. That's because this show is all about digital marketing. And to me, digital marketing is about communication. Thus, the wire is a form of digital communication. I also found out after I named it Experts on the Wire, or I remembered that the building that I'm recording this from, where the Evolving SEO office is located, used to be a wire manufacturer in Worcester, Massachusetts. Yes, that's the reason why the building I am sitting in exists. It was a company called Washburn and Moan, and then the American Steel and Wire Company. And that might have been unconscious or just a coincidence, but I took it as a sign that we're on the right track with the name of this show. So this first episode is with an expert on Google penalties and algorithms, Marie Haynes. I think you're going to learn so much from her from this episode, so please tune in and stick through the entire thing. The next episode features AJ Cohn, who is an expert when it comes to tying together the worlds of psychology, Google, SEO, branding, creativity, you name it, he's the man. It's a very special episode, so please check out episode 2 when it launches. And the third episode is with one of the most renowned people in the SEO space today in terms of the content and just the quality of information that he puts out, Brian Dean, Backlinko, and he reveals some stuff that he has not talked about anywhere else. So episode 3 is going to be exciting when that airs in a week. These episodes are going to launch twice a week, so definitely subscribe on iTunes and make sure to pay attention to when they launch and when they go out. If you like the episodes, I would love a review on iTunes. I will be giving shout outs to some reviewers on future shows. So this show is all about digital marketing. The first bunch of episodes have SEO experts because that's the field that I'm in, so that's the people that I know and that were able to come on the show early on. But we're going to hopefully branch into PR. I've got some people for PR booked, analytics. I'd love to talk about design, creativity, CRO, UX. So this is going to cover the wide variety of all there is in digital marketing, PPC. And I would love for this show to really connect with not only marketers themselves, but business owners, startup founders, people out there that are really trying to use digital marketing to grow their businesses or their websites. So not just the marketers. So I want you all to kind of feel comfortable and welcome here and like you are going to learn and get value. Finally, just 2 quick definitions before we get into the show with Marie. For those of you that are not familiar, the Panda update refers to Google's content quality update. This is an algorithm that targets low quality content. And the Penguin update is one of Google's algorithms that targets spammy and bad backlinking practices. So that's it for the announcements. We're going to jump right into this episode, which I'm very excited about, with Marie Haynes. All right, welcome everyone. So I have Marie Haynes on the call today, and I'm very excited to have her because she's been getting very well known in the SEO industry for somebody that is very knowledgeable with Google algorithms, with penalties such as Penguin, Panda, and all the phantom updates and everything like that. So I'm really excited to have her on to kind of get some knowledge from her about Google penalties. So let's jump right into it. So Marie, just before I get into the questions that I sent you ahead of time, I just want to ask quickly, where are you located, and tell me kind of what your day-to-day looks like as far as the SEO work that you do.
Hey, sure. First of all, thanks, Dan, for having me, because I'm super excited to do this. I work and live in the Ottawa area in Canada. Although I very rarely have Canadian clients. I deal with people all over the world. Most of my clients are probably in the US and a lot in Europe, Australia, and other places as well. And so what I do mostly is work with people. I started off doing work in penalties. So if somebody had a manual action, a Google manual penalty, then I would help them get rid of it. And then that merged into helping people with Penguin problems with Google's Penguin algorithm, and also Panda as well. And so my day-to-day schedule is, it can be quite varied depending on what work I'm working on. I might spend a few hours auditing links. I might be doing a few calls. And I spend a lot of time just looking into different aspects of different websites as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of selfishly, personally curious because, as you know, I do SEO work as well. My work, I think, varies a little bit more where I'm doing things outside of penalty recovery. So from what I'm hearing is all of your work is penalty recovery. Is that correct?
Well, not completely correct. Initially, that was the case. But as the web evolves and as people are not going out and, for the most part, building spammy directory links and crazy, low quality articles and getting manual penalties for those reasons. But people are getting different types of problems with their websites. And so I don't do all penalty work. I do a lot of site audits as well. And I do have the occasional client that I actually consult with them monthly on just improving their overall SEO as well.
Awesome. Let's jump right into the first questions that I have. Thank you for the background. So what I want to ask first is, can you define what, quote, pure spam is? Is this something clients should care about? Do you see this as a problem in any specific industries?
Sure. There's not a lot that is really written or known about pure spam penalties, but really the average webmaster doesn't need to worry about this. So when we first started seeing pure spam penalties, every time somebody mentioned this on the Google Help forums, I have an alert set up so I can take a look. And I've looked at every single website where somebody has said, we've been given a pure spam penalty by Google. And I would say 99% of the time, the website is complete junk. It's a website that only exists maybe to aggregate YouTube videos or to aggregate Amazon affiliate feeds. And sometimes I wonder why. Google has penalties for thin content that would apply to sites like that, but often they just slap a pure spam penalty on it. There are some cases, though, in the Webmaster Help forums where somebody got a pure spam penalty, and you look at the website and you think, well, this is not spam. It's actually, a decent website. And a lot of the time what happens is, let's say you started up a new business, you bought a new domain name, and you try to get a website out there, and for whatever reason, you can't get it. You can't see it on Google. And it might be that domain name was used in the past for pure spam. And so sometimes you can inherit a pure spam penalty. And then there have been the odd case where weird things have caused pure spam. Sometimes different WordPress plugins can do it. For a while, there were a number of sites that used, I think the plugin was called Exit Junction. It's a plugin that stops people from going back to the search results and shows them ads instead. And that was triggering pure spam penalties. But really, the vast majority of the time when you get a pure spam penalty, it's because there's no point in Google including that website on the internet. And they can be really difficult. I have gotten a few of them removed, but usually once we get into consultation, people realize that the scope of work that needs to be done to totally redo the website would just be impossible. So they can be a real pain.
Got it. So most of these sites probably end up just being thrown away and they have to start over.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of them were just people who found loopholes in Google and found ways to make quick money, and they're just not going to work anymore.
Got it. Yeah. So somebody that's running just a regular real business or an e-commerce shop or software company, they don't have to worry about, quote, pure spam unless they've really done something very aggressively negative. Is that correct?
For the most part, yes. There have been a couple of cases where a few decent sites have gotten a pure spam penalty. And usually when that happens, when I see it in the Google Webmaster Help forums, they'll apply for reconsideration and then immediately get the penalty lifted. And I don't know if sometimes there's, an error. I don't know how they find these pure spam sites, whether they're found in an algorithmic way and maybe they're not completely investigated properly, but that's really rare. I would say, less than 1% of the time, it's actually a really good website.
Got it. And I'm going to kind of jump around the questions a little bit as we get into discussion. And so I'm thinking about the listeners listening to the show. And one thing that I'll probably talk about more as I get into the shows is that I don't want this just to be for SEOs. I'd like it to be for business owners, for entrepreneurs, for general web marketers, for social media people, because what I'd love to do is help spread the awareness about SEO, because you see a lot of misinformation out there. You see old information. You see people being confused. That's why they ask questions in the help forums and places like Moz Q&A. So just to put things into context, like what situation would somebody need to be worrying proactively about penalties? Like, does your normal business owner need to be concerned with Penguin, Panda, Phantom, whatever update begins with the letter P that we have to worry about? Or is this for people that maybe in their conscious, like they know that they've done something wrong? Or is it possible that if you've just been doing business as usual that you need to pay attention to this?
That's a great question, because one of the things that I've dealt with a lot is it's actually extremely sad. And I'm sure you've seen it too, where a small business owner is just trying to get more visibility on the internet. And so they go out and they hire somebody to do marketing. And anybody who's in marketing is pretty good at selling their services. And the small business owner has no clue that Google has guidelines to follow for the most part. And so I've seen a number of small businesses where they've hired someone and then this person has done things that have been against Google's guidelines, usually building unnatural links. And the business gets affected by Penguin and now they can't rank anywhere anymore. And so now, I think the vast majority of the time I've talked to small business owners that have said, something didn't feel right about it, but I was ranking really well. And, I wasn't going to complain about that. And now the way that Penguin works, Google can go over a year or more in between rerunning the Penguin algorithm, which means that if you got affected and you can't rank for it, then you're going to be affected for a long time. Now that might change in the future. But my point is that I think a lot of small businesses were hit kind of unfairly and really don't know how to get out of this. And then in regards to Panda, Panda's so vague. when you ask Google what Panda's about, and Google will come back just saying, create a great website and everything will be fine. But
that's very Googler of them. Just create great content. How many times have we heard Matt Cutts or Gary or anybody from Google say, create great content? That's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And the common scenario is an e-commerce store that was doing really well for years and then started to decline on a date maybe a couple of years ago where we know that Panda updated and continues to decline and decline. And they're doing all that they know to do, and they're hiring people like you and me to help fix things. And in some cases we can. We've seen cases where sites have recovered nicely from Panda, but in a lot of cases the traffic just keeps declining and declining. And there's really no indication from Google. It's not like these websites were trying to cheat or to do something illegal or, so now these websites don't know whether they're still stuck under the Panda algorithm and they have changes that need to be made, or perhaps they're just not as good as their competitors. And so it's very, very difficult for websites that are declining in traffic to determine why that's happening.
So speaking of Panda, I'm glad you brought that up. Maybe you knew the question that was coming. There was an article about Panda from the SEM post by Jennifer Slegg. I think she was the one that wrote the article, and it was talking about how we'd be unlikely to see or notice future Panda updates. Because like you were saying, there was typically a date. When you knew there was a Panda update, Google either announced it or people monitoring it saw changes in their analytics. But now what's been talked about in the last few months is that we won't see updates at all, like it's being rolled into kind of their core algorithm. What are your thoughts on that? Is that true? Are we not going to see Panda updates anymore?
Well, I don't think anybody outside of Google can say with certainty whether or not that's true. I mean, I think my gut instinct is that Panda will still they'll do little pushes of the Panda algorithm, but maybe they won't be as dramatic as, in the past we could say, okay, on this date, I have all of these sites that I monitor that either drastically increased or drastically decreased. And if enough of us see that, we can say, okay, yeah, this is a Panda update or a Panda refresh. But now the changes are going to be subtle. And I do think that we'll still be able to say, those of us who work with a lot of Panda hit sites, there should be enough of us that say, oh, we saw a little bit of an improvement here. So perhaps this is Panda. But I think it's also possible that it will be very, very difficult for anybody to determine. And maybe it makes our job harder, right? Because I would like to be able to go in and say, yes, you have a problem with Panda. But in reality, the more we learn about Panda, it's not like we do specific things for Panda recovery. I mean, with Penguin, we know that we're primarily looking at the quality of your backlinks.
Yes. And
Panda is really about the overall quality of your site. And I hate to say this, but really what Google is saying is kind of what we need to do. I mean, they're saying create the best website you can, and that's all that you need to do. And so I think any site that's declining in traffic, whether it's because of Panda or whether it's just because they're not doing as well as their competitors, the treatment is the same. I mean, it's, let's look at the technical SEO, make sure that there isn't anything obvious that is messing up the way that Google crawls your site. Make sure there isn't anything that's really annoying to users, and let's improve upon the content to make it so that Google would want to show your site before everyone else. So I think that it doesn't really change things in the long run. I mean, it makes us stop focusing on just thin content, or we had, big discussions on whether duplicate content was an issue, and rather focusing on the overall site quality, which is what Google wants. But it's still quite frustrating for the business owner who is seeing fewer and fewer sales, for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. So thinking back to the non-SEO, to the business owner, the entrepreneur, the startup founder, is it fair to say that if they're doing the things that they know should be done to create a great website, good UX, CRO, nice design, good content, and that they're, to their best of their ability doing that within their resources, is it fair to say they can avoid Panda? Or do you see situations where the site has great UX and it has good CRO and it has maybe some good metrics, but they still seem to be caught?
I think the question is whether they're caught under Panda or whether this is just the way that the algorithm is now. I don't know if that makes sense, but I used to think of Panda like, I had this analogy that, let's say your website was a hot air balloon and all of the really awesome stuff that you do is like the air that just helps you to rise in the rankings. And I used to say that filters like Panda and Penguin are like sandbags that pull the hot air balloon down and they keep you from reaching your full potential. So, if you had a really good website, but you had all these issues that the Panda algorithm was not happy with, it might keep you from ranking, however many positions higher than you should be ranking. But now I really feel like, and some people might argue with me on this, but I do feel like a big component of Panda is actually user engagement and how well people are enjoying your website. So what I mean by this is, in the past, let's say I wanted to sell some type of a product, a widget or whatever, right? And in the past, if I had a good enough website and I could probably, and maybe get some good links, I could rank at the top. But now I'm being outranked by Amazon and by Staples and, Home Depot, all these really well-known stores. And people would argue that Google has a brand bias, but really I don't think it's Google that has the brand bias. It's people. Because myself, when I'm searching, I recognize Staples and I might want to go buy that product at that store, but I'm not going to buy it from, buygreenwidgets.com.
Yes.
And so there are some cases where maybe buygreenwidgets.com has a really fantastic UX and it's a wonderful site, but it's not the site that users prefer. And there may not be a way to get outrank the big players.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I want to jump to just kind of switch gears quickly and jump to an article that I believe you wrote in December 2014 from Search Engine Watch, and I'll have links in show notes or wherever this ends up. I'm still figuring that out. But I'll have links to all the articles I mentioned. This is on Search Engine Watch, rather. And I'm just going to read a quick quote from that and then ask if your thoughts have changed on this. So one thing you said in that article was, quote, "My purpose in writing this post was to get people talking and sharing their ideas on how to start over when you have been severely hit by Penguin and have decided that starting over is a better idea than trying to clean up. In my opinion, the safest work to do this is to start a new site with new content on your old site, put up a splash page that says we have moved with a no-followed link to your site. I do think that either of the robots.txt blocking options will work as well, but at this point, there is still a bit of a risk." So essentially, you're giving consultation for if people have been hit and they need to just throw it all away and move, how to do that safely without leaving any traces. So is that something you'd still recommend today?
Right. I think there are two parts to this question. So the first is talking about whether or not you should start over. And so I want to sort of cover that first. And I mean, we can't cover the whole thing in this talk, but I see a lot of people that say, look, we've been trying to recover from Penguin for a long, long time, and it's not working. We want to just scrap everything and start over. And because if you've been hit by Penguin, the only time you can recover from Penguin is when Google reruns the Penguin algorithm. And they haven't done that for almost a year and a half now. So if you have been, if a year ago you were trying to clean up your links and recover, and you haven't seen recovery, it might be that recovery is just around the corner. So we don't know when Penguin is going to rerun. They said at one point it was going to be the end of 2015, and then they said sometime in 2016. But so I think for those who are trying to decide whether to completely start over, I would do nothing right now until we see what happens with the new Penguin that eventually will come out. But let's say that you do decide that, okay, we want to start over. It's really tricky because I have seen if you take your same content on your same website and just put it on a different domain name, often in Google Search Console, you'll see all of the links from that were pointing to the old site now pointing to the new site.
Yes.
Even if you don't add redirects, and Google says they came via this intermediate link, which is your old site.
Yep.
And so, Google is pretty good at figuring out, look, this is just the same site. It has the same issues. And you probably wouldn't be able to rank that site really well. So it's not an easy decision to just start over. So in that article, I wrote about all of the possible ways that you could get visitors from, because if you probably have branding and advertising and everything with your old URL, what if they land there? How are you going to get them to your new site? And one of the options was there's a way that you can, it's going to be hard to not make this too complicated, but redirect users to your new site, but not redirect any of the links that point to your old site.
Right.
And that was using an intermediary page that's blocked by robots. Gets kind of complicated. I've done this for a few sites, and I have to say that it's kind of 50-50. I've had some sites where we've started over, and I mean, you're starting over a brand new site, so you're not going to rank number one at the beginning. But I have had some sites that have climbed up to excellent rankings again. But I've had other sites that really saw no improvement after doing all of this. And I mean, there could be other reasons. It might be that I think in some cases, the only reasons why those sites ranked well initially was because of the power of links that are unnatural. But my point is that there's so much that we don't know about how Google treats new sites that it's really, really tough. So I think if you were saying, what's the best way to get users from my old site to my new site without passing on any Penguin issues, yeah, I mean, the best way probably is to put up just a single splash page on your old site to say, look, we've moved to here, and not actually link to your new site. But then that's not really good for users either. So it is a conundrum. And like I said, I mean, I've had people start over in multiple different ways, and some of them have done really well, and others where I feel like we've done everything correctly, they're still having issues. I believe with the Penguin algorithm, but then Penguin doesn't act all by itself either, right? So It's kind of a complicated situation, and I think every case is different. But generally, I would say for most sites, I would not recommend starting over until we see what Penguin does. And if you are going to start over, I think you need to really look at all of the possible conditions and decide what's best for your site.
Great advice. And the thing I want to emphasize for the listeners out there, because like I said, the listeners might not be SEOs or really care, but I think one point that I try to make to business owners and people that don't do SEO is I try to tell them to be informed, to educate themselves on SEO, because the things you're saying right now, I mean, as I hear you talking, I mean, you obviously really know your stuff when it comes to Google's, what we can know about Google's algorithms. Obviously, there's a lot we don't know, but you really know your stuff as far as like the things that have been talked about publicly. And I think that it's very important for people to educate themselves, because if you're a business owner and you need to hire an SEO to help with anything, maybe you don't have a penalty, maybe you're just trying to increase organic traffic, or maybe you are moving your website in just a normal migration, it's really important to educate yourself to these things. So when you talk to somebody, when you interview 5 SEOs that could possibly help you, you'll know the ones that know what they're talking about and don't. Like, at least you'll have that education in that sense. And I think it's very important to emphasize that, the value in the information that you're giving on this on the show is super important, I think, for anybody to try to learn a little bit about. So definitely thank you for that. And I hope people listening are paying attention and taking notes, because like I said, even if you don't do SEO, this is incredibly important stuff to be aware of. So shifting gears again, we have maybe about 7 or 10 minutes left in the show for today. Obviously a topic that's been talked about a bit in SEO, the tech industry at large, is gender equality, women in SEO, women in tech. And just wanted to ask if you had any particular feelings about that, being a woman in SEO. Have you felt any difference, disadvantages, advantages, or anything at all that you want to share about that?
Right. And that's a hot topic these days for sure. I have never felt any disadvantage at all being a woman in SEO. And now maybe my situation is a bit different than others, because I didn't work in a big agency. I didn't have, a boss over me or anything, but I've never felt that a client was treating me any differently because of my gender. Mm-hmm. The one thing where I think perhaps maybe women have a bit of an advantage is if you're a woman in tech and you want to start speaking at conferences are always struggling to get enough women speakers. Mm-hmm. And so now I would like to think that if I pitch to speak at a conference that they're going to pick me because I know what I'm talking about. But I think that there might be some situations where I get a bit of an advantage because they haven't met their proper quota, and they might pick a woman over a man. But really, I don't think that I have seen any problems because of my gender at all.
Well, that's good to hear. And speaking of just the industry as a whole, I know that you've seen me tweet a few times, my thoughts about, I tend to try to step back and look at the SEO industry from afar sometimes, and sometimes we all look insane, because the day that like an algo change happens, it's great that we all really care about that because we're really trying to help our clients. But you see like Dr. P and Barry going back and forth on Twitter, and there was that day that people were talking about the Panda update, I think debating if it was real time or part of the core algorithm. And I think Barry read a little bit too much into like a few words that John Mueller said from Google. So we all do kind of look insane, but I think it's good to a certain degree. But what are your thoughts on the industry as the SEO industry as a whole?
I find it fascinating. I mean, I don't know how much you know about my background, but I used to be a veterinarian.
Oh.
And like I was always interested in SEO as a hobby. I've been doing it for years and years, just trying to figure out how Google works. And I mean, we don't have time to get into the whole story of how I eventually became an SEO. People think I'm crazy for leaving a good established career and then coming into this area, but I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it, and I think it's quite a unique industry where anybody really can learn and become good at some aspect of SEO. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's an amazing community. I think sometimes the community can get like you said, the chatter on Twitter can be a little silly sometimes.
Yes.
But that's probably the case for most industries. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's something where if anybody's listening and you're thinking, wow, I wish I could learn this stuff. I remember going into some of the SEO forums and being completely lost about what is this? You know, they're using all these words I've never heard of and fascinated at the same time. And to think if you had told me years ago that I would be the one answering questions in some of the forums, like I would not have believed you. So there's so much opportunity if you're willing to learn. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, and as a whole, I found it to be a very welcoming community. That certainly plays into my background into getting into the industry as well. I think if the people weren't so welcoming for the most part, I probably wouldn't have gotten into it either. But great. So I have one last question. This is kind of a fun one. We gave it to you a little bit ahead of time, so I know you had a little chance to think about it a little. But so Google names their algorithms for some reason black animals, penguin, panda, they begin with the letter P. It's just really kind of humorous. But just for entertainment's sake, can you humanize penguin? If Google's penguin was an actual penguin or human penguin or whatever you want to call it, what job does it have? How does it spend its day? And what does it do for fun?
When you first gave me that question, I was like, Dan, I can't answer that. And then all of a sudden, this story popped into my head. And it's probably going to seem a little silly, but here it goes. So I think that penguin is actually a gardener. And this gardener works for this huge landscaping company. And the landscaping company pretty much controls all of the gardens in most of the world. Maybe not China, but most of the world. And the landscaping company kind of determines which gardens get to be seen and which gardens get to flourish. And one day they send out the gardener. And the gardener is looking for all of the bad weeds in the garden. And when the gardener determines that the garden has really bad weeds, he makes it so that nobody can see that garden. And the garden is stuck. It can't grow. It can't flourish. Right? And so the gardens, of course, are quite upset at this. And so they go to the landscape company and they say, what can we do? And the landscape company says, just build a good garden and you will be fine. And they say, but come on, the gardener devastated us. And so the landscaping company says, well, you clean up your weeds, and the next time the gardener comes, if he thinks that you've done a good job, we'll allow you to grow and to flourish again. So the gardens work super hard at cleaning up their weeds. And they wait, and they wait, and the gardener is not coming. So they go back to the landscape company, and the landscape company says, the gardener will come by the end of 2015. And everybody's really happy because they've been working hard, right? And the gardener did not come. And so they go back to the landscaping company, and instead of getting a direct answer, they get, the gardener will march in 2016. And so a lot of the gardens, some of them write articles about this, and a lot of them say, well, they said March, so it's probably he's going to come in March. But so far, we have not seen the gardener, and there's all these gardens that are doing really good stuff, but they can't get approved for their hard work in cleaning up all their weeds. That's what I think.
That is, I hope to do a lot more of those kinds of questions, but I think that one's going to be the best one for a very long time, the best answer for a very long time. I really enjoyed that. I do appreciate anybody that can tell a good story like that too. It's not a skill of mine. So that was really nice. Awesome. So we're just about ready to wrap things up. This has been a really enjoyable conversation. I'm really looking forward to talking to more SEOs and people outside of the SEO industry as well, hopefully on the show. So I really appreciate you coming on and being the very first guest. I guess, are there any last tips or pieces of advice, words of wisdom that you might leave for, I'm thinking especially non-SEOs, so we talked about business owners and things like that. Any kind of last thoughts that you might have for them in regards to Google SEO?
Sure. Well, first of all, Dan, I just want to thank you again for having me, especially having me as your first guest. I'm really honored for that, and I wish you the best with. I think this is going to be really good. You're going to have an excellent show with lots of good guests to come.
Thank you.
I think for the average small business owner, like you said, kind of stay up to date with what Google is doing, and know that if it sounds too good to be true, it is. I get emails all the time from people saying, we can see that you're not ranking for your top keywords, and we can rank you for like a silly low, $200 a month or something. And that stuff is gone. That there was a day where things like that actually could work in some industries. But if you're going to hire somebody to work on your website, you want to ask them, what are you going to do specifically? I don't want to hear marketing speak like we're going to leverage this and we're, all these things. I want to know exactly. I mean, I don't need to know every single detail of your marketing plan, but I want to have good concrete things that we can do to improve your website. And again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And there are a lot of people that can talk a good talk and have no clue how to make a website that Google wants to put at the top of their search results. But then there are some really good people out there that really know what they're talking about. So the other thing I would say is ask for references. I think that there are, a lot of people when asked for references will say, well, we have an NDA with all of our clients and we can't share those. But any SEO who's really good at what they're doing, they will have clients willing to share all sorts of testimonials for them. So, do your research and make sure that you get somebody who actually does know what they're doing and doesn't just talk a good talk.
Excellent advice. And for self-education, I usually recommend people honestly read Google's guidelines, number one. Maybe watch a few Hangouts just to kind of like get it inside. So John Mueller does the Hangouts at Google Webmaster Central. Are there any specific places you would recommend that people go to for some self-education?
If I can put in a little bit of a self-pitch, I mean, I do have a newsletter that I'll put out whenever Google has done a big change to their algorithms. Oh. And you can find that at my website. It's at mariehaynes.com. And I try to gear that. I mean, it's written for SEOs, but also for small business owners that just want to kind of get a general overview of what Google's doing with the algorithms. And I think two good places to go. We talked about Barry Schwartz and the Search Engine Roundtable. He covers things that Google is doing, and also Jen Slegg at the SEM Post does really, really good job at describing the new things that Google's doing and how that would affect business owners as well. And I think those are good places to get some good information.
Yeah, excellent tips. I definitely agree with those. So awesome. I think we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you again, Marie, for coming on the show. And stay tuned for the next one.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
Wow. I hope you enjoyed listening to Marie's expertise as much as I did. And I hope that was valuable. I'm learning how to speak. So you join me in this journey. Anyhow, I really hope you enjoyed that first episode. Please stick around for the next episode, the second one coming out this week with AJ Cohn, who is an expert with all of the things I mentioned before: psychology, SEO, branding, creativity. And if you found this episode or any episode useful, or if you have a critique or anything you want to leave in a review in iTunes for the Expert on the Wire podcast, I would greatly appreciate that. And if you want to give me a shout out on Twitter and ask for anything in any of the upcoming episodes, suggest a guest, if you have questions or suggestions, I am at Dan_Schneider. Shore, S-H-U-R-E. That's D-A-N, the underscore, S-H-U-R-E. It's been a pleasure spending this hour with you. I'll see you next week, or on the next episode, rather, the second one this week with AJ Cohn. Thanks. Oh, and music by me.